The swift and strategic capture of Segusio, followed by the brutal and decisive victory at Turin, prompted Mediolanum and several other towns in the northern plains of Italy to send envoys to Constantine. These cities offered him supplies and pledged their support for his ongoing campaign. As a result, Constantine was able to enter Mediolanum without facing resistance, allowing his army to rest in the city by the summer of 312. Contemporary sources, particularly his Panegyrist, highlight the moment of Constantine's triumphal entry into Milan, emphasizing the enthusiastic celebrations of the citizens who welcomed him with great fervor. Despite his initial successes, Constantine's overall victory was far from guaranteed. Northeastern Italy remained under the control of Maxentius's forces. The Italian usurper had stationed a strong garrison in the northeastern plains to defend against potential invasions through the Eastern Alps, and another garrison at the head of the Adriatic Sea to block any coastal advance from Illyricum. Command of this strategically vital region was given to Ruricius Pompeianus, the newly appointed Praetorian prefect. Constantine needed to defeat these forces before he could advance southward to confront Maxentius directly. Therefore, in late summer, he departed from Milan and led his army eastward. Aware of Constantine's advancing army, Ruricius Pompeianus dispatched a contingent of heavy cavalry, likely the Clibanarii, to intercept and block Constantine's forces. Upon realizing that his path was obstructed near Brescia, Constantine immediately ordered his own cavalry to engage the enemy. The resulting battle appears to have been brief. Constantine, leading from the front, fought courageously alongside his men, managing to break the ranks of the Clibanarii after a single decisive charge. Defeated, the Clibanarii retreated to their primary defensive stronghold in the region at Verona, located approximately 40 miles to the east along the Adige River. Constantine pursued the retreating enemy and eventually reached Verona. Regardless of whether Ruricius Pompeianus had been involved in the earlier defeat at Turin, he was now in command at Verona. Pompeianus had summoned all available troops from northern Italy to gather within the city for its defense. While the exact details of what followed remain uncertain, historians have been able to reconstruct a reasonably detailed sequence of events based on the accounts of two Panegyrists. The city of Verona was heavily garrisoned, not only with fresh troops from across northern Italy, but also with survivors from the Battle of Turin and cavalrymen who had fled after their defeat by Constantine at Brescia. According to the historian Nazarius, the morale of these troops was significantly affected by the stories of those who had witnessed Constantine's earlier victories. Nevertheless, Verona was well fortified, protected by both its city walls and the river Adige. Moreover, the city spanned the Adige, making it difficult for Constantine to fully encircle or lay siege to it, as supplies and reinforcements could easily reach the city from the east. At this stage, it is likely that Pompeianus was content to remain within the city's defenses, as his position effectively safeguarded the cities further east. His presence also posed a significant threat to Constantine, who risked being attacked from the rear if he attempted to bypass Verona and march south toward Rome. No commander wishes to face enemies on two fronts, so Constantine was compelled to take decisive measures to capture the city. To effectively lay siege to Verona, Constantine needed to cut off access to the city from the east. He dispatched a small detachment of soldiers northward, directing them to ford the river at a shallow point. Once across, they moved back south and secured the high ground overlooking the northern part of the city, thereby blocking any potential escape routes over the bridge or through the river. This maneuver forced Pompeianus to close the eastern gates of the city. With Verona now under siege, Pompeianus still believed he could defeat Constantine in open combat. Rather than endure a prolonged siege, he chose to confront Constantine outside the city walls. Unfortunately, the sources do not provide a detailed account of the ensuing battle, but what is clear is that Constantine emerged victorious, with the defenders suffering significant losses. Most of the surviving defenders retreated behind the city walls, though Pompeianus managed to escape. He traveled across northern Italy, gathering reinforcements over the course of several days, or possibly longer, before eventually returning to Verona with a newly assembled army. Although returning to Verona was a risky decision, given Constantine's unbroken string of victories and the high morale of his troops, Pompeianus likely had strong hopes for success. His fresh reinforcements had not faced defeat and were therefore not demoralized. Moreover, Constantine now faced a significant strategic challenge. He was under threat both from within the city and from Pompeianus' forces outside the walls. Coordinating a defense on two fronts would be difficult, particularly as part of Constantine's army was stationed on the opposite bank of the river Adige. The situation appeared precarious. Nevertheless, Constantine remained resolute. He left a portion of his troops to maintain the siege, including those positioned on the far side of the city, while he led the rest of his forces to confront Pompeianus. Few details of the battle have survived. There are no records of troop numbers, nor is there a detailed account of the course of the conflict. Similar to Caesar's tactics at Alesia, Constantine divided his forces, leaving part of his army to continue the siege of the city, while leading the other part to engage Pompeianus' reinforcements in open battle. Constantine personally led the charge against the latter. Initially, he deployed his forces in the standard double-line formation. However, upon realizing that he was outnumbered, he swiftly adapted his strategy by extending his front into a single line to better prepare for battle. The preparations made by Pompeianus are not documented in the surviving sources. Neither of the panegyrists provides details about his preparations, and any historical accounts that might have included this information have been lost. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the battlefield, the clash of arms began. The air was thick with tension as Constantine prepared for the confrontation. The battle unfolded in the encroaching darkness, a shroud that only heightened the sense of dread and anticipation. Constantine, resolute and unyielding, took his place at the center of the battle line. His presence was a beacon of courage and determination for his troops, who could see their leader leading from the front. As the fighting erupted, Constantine fought with unrelenting ferocity, cutting a bloody path through the enemy ranks. The clash of steel and the roar of combat filled the air as the two sides collided in the darkness. The night was punctuated by the cries of men and the clash of weapons, a brutal symphony of war. Despite the oppressive gloom, Constantine's forces pressed on with a relentless drive, their morale bolstered by the sight of their leader fighting valiantly at the heart of the fray. The Western army of Constantine, driven by the sheer determination of their commander, began to gain the upper hand. Through the chaos and carnage, they pushed forward, their opponents faltering under the relentless assault. In the brutal melee, Constantine's troops managed to outmaneuver and overpower the enemy forces. The night air, once filled with the sounds of battle, grew quieter as the clash subsided. The defeat of Pompeianus was a decisive blow, and the once mighty commander fell amidst his fallen soldiers. His death marked the end of the struggle, leaving the battlefield strewn with the remnants of a fierce and bloody confrontation. Following his victory, the residents of Verona quickly recognized Constantine's dominance and promptly surrendered. News of this triumph reached the forces at Aquileia, who sent envoys to offer their surrender as well. The other towns in northeastern Italy also welcomed Constantine as their liberator with great enthusiasm. In the aftermath of the battle, Constantine and his troops were in urgent need of rest and recuperation. They required time to bury their dead, tend to the wounded, and recover from the grueling campaign. Therefore, it is likely that Constantine remained in Verona for a short period to address these needs. By the autumn of 312, Constantine had gained control over Cisalpine Italy, spanning from the western Alpine passes to the eastern Adriatic ports, and from the northern peaks to the Po River, a region approximately 300 miles wide and 100 miles deep. However, despite this significant territorial gain, the civil war was not yet over. Both sides prepared for one final confrontation near the Milvian Bridge.